Just about 14 miles from the college I recommend. You know where that is, I guess.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I was with the early plowing up there, and Russ told me he was married then to Lenore
Sinclair?
in St. Clair, Sinclair or something. And he said, I'm going to leave you now to go back to construction work. And he said, you guys can make out all right with this. Paul was with me. And then Dad come up and took Paul with him, and I think they were planning to get started on the hay down on Butler Island, which was about 35 miles from the old dry farm. Dad told me, he said, I want you to bring certain horses you named to me. And there were 7 head. I was supposed to take out of the,
How old were you?
well, I was, let's see, that's before I got the cracked back. Yeah. I must have been 11 years old then. Anyway, he said, bring them to the farm. We were down, I don't know if you're acquainted with Ryrie, Idaho, because it was just out across there toward the river, and that's where our old place was. And we raised a lot of hay there and grain, purposely for the horses, and we'd haul it up to the farm to feed the horses. But Dad said, now before you leave here with them, the other horses will try to get out, try hard to get out and follow you when you split them up, because this horse might be this one's buddy, and so on, down through the bunch. And you'd see them get together that way, and always trailing in the trail, they'd be close to their buddy. And
Like they went out in the wild, huh?
Some of them, they'd been together quite a while, and they all worked together, and certain ones would pick a certain buddy, and that's the way they'd stay with him. Well, he said, before you leave up here, you go out there in the corner toward Heiner's place, where we used to get through into that next field to us. And we had a big corral built just a quarter mile from Heiner's, and that's where we had a little cabin. And that's where we'd stay in batch when we were doing work on the west side of the place. When we were on the east side, we had to travel 2 miles from the river or the creek to get up to the ranch. And we had more handies up there. We had a barn and had good corrals. We had a better house. And just better all around, except we had to haul water up there to us.
Didn't have ready ones.
Anyway, he told me, he said, now be sure and check that fence out. Don't leave any loose wires, especially the top wire. And he said, just get on a certain horse, and we didn't even have a saddle we rode then. We rode bareback. And he took Paul down to Genevieve Nile. We're staying at the little place down on Butler Island. They were milking a bunch of cows there, sending the milk off on a truck. About every other day, they'd have to check to see if everything was okay. And of course, we had no telephone, so they couldn't tell what was going on up on Moody. And anyway, it was quite a trick to cut so many head of horses out of there, and then go along and make sure that that wire was tight, especially the top wire. And Russ taught me that. He says, if the top wire is good, he said, a horse won't tackle it if you've got more wire hanging below. That wire can be half on the ground, but a horse won't crawl under that top one. But he said, if the top one is alone, there's a lot of these horses will duck under that, and then another one will follow him. So he said, that he and Dad both said, keep your top wire tight. Well, I went out to put the gate up, and I saw a bad piece of wire. It had the barbs, the one with the barbs on it. And I thought, well, I'll just find another piece of wire. We had pieces and little rolls of wire we'd roll up and put them here or there. And I went to the corral and picked up these little rolls of wire, got the best one I could see, and went back out, and that whole wire needed to be fixed for, 150. Took a hammer and some pinchers and a few staples, and I went out and just took that wire from the post where it was last fastened, staying up. And I broke it off and took it around, wrapped it up, pulled awful hard to one side on it, and then wrapped the end of the wire around that. And then I put the other wire around the post and tied it in. Went back down the other end there to the old wire that was there, but we had a pretty good piece of old wire, and I took as much wire off that spool as I needed, and then I stretched it up. We took a big stick with a fastened on a piece of halter chain, and you put the chain around here and put a staple or two in to hold it so it won't slip onto that. And you work that around the post. For the alternate, the tighter you're going to get this wire. He said, don't break the wire, but he said, get it tight. So I was doing that, and this piece of wire that I went over and got placed in it where it had been standing in some water sometime, because I got the wire real tight, and I thought I was ready to staple it up. And that wire broke, and the end of that come back, hit me there, and I think there's still a little bit of scar across that eyeball right there.
Let me
Tore
see.
that open, tore the eyebrow clear through, and not brow, the eyelid. And, oh, it bled. Got some cold water and a handkerchief, and I sponged it a while, and then it'd feel better, and I'd think, well, I'm ready to go. Well, that was a long ways to go and drive those loose horses. And I'd already kicked them out into the road, so I had to stay with them and keep moving. And I'd ride a while, and it'd make me sick. I'd get a headache and just felt like I was going to die. And I'd just get off the horse and sit down a while and hold him. The old horses would scatter out a little bit, but they'd try to find something to eat. If they could get into a man's field, they would eat good food. But I had a long ways to go. I had a fenced lane until I got down to Webster's big place. And it was about 6.5, 7 miles from the college up to Webster's center of their place. Well, I had to come down past Webster's and on down to what they called the Bible grade, where they cut a side hill out and made a road from on the hills down into the valley. I knew that was the shortest way to go. I went down there and I had to ride pretty hard and fast to get those horses down onto the road below where there was, the farmers had their fences up tight. And you could trust the horses in there, a little bit of grass along the sides. They would spread out on me, and I'd just hurry up and get them back together, and then I'd move on. But I'd get so blooming sick, I'd go dizzy, and I'd give up and sit down and wait a while, and then I'd get back on the horse and go. Well, it took me quite a while to get down there that day, but I made it with all the horses. When Nile and Dee saw me, they said, what in the world happened to you? My clothes was bloody and my eye full of blood, and the scar across there was all wrinkled up. Some of the blood had dried. So they did the best they could with me, and after a while they said, we've got to get him to somebody that knows what they're doing. Well, Maud Reed was a good friend of ours. She and her husband Jim lived by the Stromberg family, and they were all good friends. And they said, we'll take you down to Reed's and see if Maud Reed's home, and if she is, we'll get you straightened up. And they got me down there, and she took sterilizer of some kind and made that real good. And I don't know what she had, but she took something and put over that. And she got it all cleaned up good and put a, I don't know, it was something similar to a Band-Aid, only she didn't have the cloth there. Well, I couldn't tell for sure. Anyway, she put kinds of medicine on her that she knew was safe and good, and put that stuff over it. And I was feeling better then. They took me back home. They kept me down pretty good for a day. But, I had to get working. I was supposed to get the lawn machine out and get it greased up and start mowing hay. And then Dad told us, he says, I'll be back. He was running and buying horses and this and that and the other. He come back and said, well, let's get with it now, let's hit it. He didn't even know that I'd been hurt. And he finally said, what you got that hand with that Band-Aid over your eye for? I said, to hold the eye in. I said, well, look it over. And after the Band-Aid come off, where there was a white streak across there, it had healed. That was the sickest I ever was too. I think a lot of times they're coming down off.
That was pretty brave, though, as young as you were, to have to.
I had to do it.
Had to follow through with it, did the job.
Dad wanted me to do it, so I did it. And the day after I got down there, well, we had a mowing machine going and planting the hay and the way we were gonna do it. Paul and Dad and I took hay. I don't remember how many. We had 2 big stacks, pretty big stacks of hay. They'd awful good hay. Some timothy in it and a little clover, the rest was alfalfa.
Hey, give us a small